Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We'll get started very shortly. Just gonna give some time for folks to log in. All right, so hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. Before we get started, we're going to cover a few housekeeping items. All attendees were muted when they entered the webinar to minimize background noise. To ask questions, you can type those into the questions box located in your control panel at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer those questions at the end of the webinar. And a recording of this presentation will be available on the WaterSense website and AWE's YouTube channel following the presentation. So we're still waiting for folks to log in and get settled. I do have a couple poll questions to launch quickly to get to know our audience. Let's see, and launch. There we go. So our first poll question is, who do we have on the call today? And your options are local, state government, irrigation professional, water utility, university or university extension office, or university extension service, or other. And the second question is, what part of the country are you calling from? And the options are west, southwest, midwest, southeast, and northeast. And I'm seeing lots of responses rolling in, so thanks everyone for taking the poll. I'm going to leave it open for another 10 seconds or so. So if you're looking at the poll, please lock in your answer now. All right, thanks everyone. Looks like we got a lot of state and local government, irrigation professionals, water utilities, other, and we have some university folks here too. And a majority of folks are from the West, about a little more than half. And then we've got folks from all over the country today. So again, thanks for joining us. We're happy you can make it. So today's webinar will focus on outdoor policy and saving water. As water shortages and drought continue to trend across the country, states and municipalities are turning to regulatory action to curb excessive water use and promote water-wise landscaping. You can join WaterSense, the Alliance for Water Efficiency, the California Water Efficiency Partnership, and the Appliance Standards Awareness Project to unpack current regulatory trends and learn how to promote water efficiency. Sarah Lavoie is the Environmental Protection Specialist for WaterSense outdoor programs. She works with the technical team on new outdoor specifications and coordinates with professional certifying organizations to develop resources to promote water-efficient practices with industry and the public. She has master's degrees in public affairs and environmental science, both focusing on water resource management from Indiana University and a bachelor's degree from The Ohio State University. Andrew D. Morris is the Director of Policy at the Alliance for Water Efficiency, where he works towards achieving the Alliance's 2025 policy priorities, which can be found at the allianceforwaterefficiency.org. He also regularly works on programs, research, and planning to support the Alliance's broader mission and to stay closely connected to the needs of water efficiency practitioners and those they serve. He has 15 years of experience working for and with utilities in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. He earned a law degree from the University of Notre Dame and bachelor's degree in history from the University of Georgia. We'll also have Linda Vo giving a presentation today. She is the Senior Program Manager with the California Water Efficiency Partnership, where she manages various programs, helps lead the organization's advocacy efforts, assists with events, and more to promote urban water efficiency and conservation. She graduated with honors from UC Davis, where she majored in managerial economics and minored in environmental policy analysis and planning. And last, we'll have Brian Fady, who is a state policy manager at the Appliance Standards Awareness Project. He has 12 years of experience working on state-level public policy and a master's degree in public policy from the University of Michigan. So thanks everyone again. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Sarah.
Great. Thanks, Katie. All right. Thank you all again, to echo what Katie said, for joining us today. I just want to take this moment real quick to announce that WaterSense has developed a new HOA resource hub to provide HOAs with the knowledge and resources to make applicable and unique water conscious decisions in outdoor spaces. This new page is a one-stop shop for someone who is new or newish to water and landscape management. It is a resource that could be easily shared to inspired HOA boards, passed through transitions of leadership, and then also used just for a variety of water saving projects. On the site, water champions are led through organizing, communicating, and taking action towards water saving goals. We also include a running list of additional resources and project or program highlights, so different success stories that we found across the country. And this page specifically is intended to be a stepping stone for members of an HOA to assess their properties and perhaps then approach their property or landscape managers or water providers with a specific ask or a project in mind. And while the intended audience is specifically HOAs, I do think there are still plenty of resources that a water provider or a landscape or irrigation professional could still use. And also, if you know of any successful case studies or programs, I'd be happy to add them to the resource list. So I encourage everyone on this call to visit the page, check it out, see what's useful. This is definitely just a starting point. We want to add more to this page, so I'd be happy and excited to hear all of your thoughts and see what works and what doesn't. So the web page can be found at the link seen at the bottom of the slide. It's WaterSense/homeowner associations. You could also just Google WaterSense homeowner associations. It should come right up. And yeah, I guess now that I've said that little slide bar, I'll hand the presentation off to Andrew to give you some more background on today's webinar topic.
Thanks, Sarah. Glad to be here. And I think most folks on the call know the Alliance for Water Efficiency, but I'll give a little background to frame things today. We're a national 501c3 with over 500 members across the United States and North America more broadly. And we focus on a few major areas with our members: collaboration, bringing people together, knowledge building, doing research, providing tools, filling holes in the industry's resources so that we can better promote the efficient use of water, and on policy change, advocacy, and education. And that's really the focus of today. We'll be talking about some policy trends, helping keep folks informed and sharing our observations about what's going on across the country. One of the things that's great about working at AWE is we get to talk to members from all different states. And we tend to find that folks in a given state, if you live in the state of Colorado or California, you often know what's going on in your state, but sometimes you aren't as familiar with what's happening elsewhere and what you might be able to learn and share and draw from each other. Just a note on our members: we are made up of mostly water utilities, maybe half to 2/3, but then we have a whole wide range of other members, including many folks involved in irrigation equipment manufacturing, landscape professionals, nonprofits, governments, business, consultants. So really the wide range of people who work with and for utilities on municipal water use efficiency. Encourage you to check out our website. We have many resources available for free there, including most of the ones I'll talk about today. And we have other tools and resources that are members only. So if you're interested in those, please check out membership and talk to us anytime. So with that, I told my kids today what I was going to be doing, and they asked if I was going to be talking on the internet about toilets. But I'm pleased to say today we'll be talking about outdoor water use. And, it's always been a focus, but I think increasingly, as you'll see from some of the trends, our industry as a whole is focusing more and more on outdoor water use. Indoor water use and, of course, toilets will remain an important part of an efficiency program and of efficiency policy. But I think it's really the outdoor area where we're seeing a lot of the most dynamic and interesting policy making at the state level and at the local level. These are from one of our reports looking at how homeowners think about their water use and how that compares to what's actually going on. And I share this just to kind of frame the size of the opportunity. It's large. You can see on the left there, actual water use outdoors makes up maybe 30 to 60% of the typical household's water use. That, of course, depends on where you're located, what your climate is, what types of plants you have, and so on. But I think it's a pretty reasonable range that covers most areas, and it shows that this is a really, really important area. On the other side there, it's about how efficiently people are using their irrigation equipment, what types of equipment they're using. And again, you'll see that efficient use of efficient equipment is still relatively small, and there's room to grow there as well. Obviously, you can see homeowner perception leaves something to be desired, so there's clearly educational, programmatic, other ways we can address outdoor water use efficiency. But today we'll be talking about the policy side. And I'll mention too that we recognize that outdoor is not a one size fits all at this point. You know, folks on the call, we saw the regions you're from. It's going to vary from place to place, but we're going to talk today about the trends we're seeing and what that might show all of us about where things are heading or what types of ideas that we might explore in our own places. The Alliance for Water Efficiency has a track record of reviewing, analyzing, and making recommendations on state water policy. These are our scorecards, the most recent one of which we completed in 2022. And that was based on data collected really 2020, 2021. And so a lot of the things I'll share today are actually policy areas that have really evolved a lot since even our most recent scorecard. So back to kind of thinking about toilets. This was our 2022 scorecard. This is talking about point of sale fixture requirements. And historically, people were pretty focused on indoor water use in this area. And that's what we tracked and reported on in our most recent scorecard. But increasingly, we're seeing people use the same types of approaches, points of sale requirement for outdoor related equipment and irrigation related equipment. Just a little bit of background, point of sale requirement, that is when a state passes a law that requires that retailers and others only sell the efficient versions of a given product. And this map shows, and this map's evolved too actually, but this map was focused on toilets, shower heads, and urinals. But what we're starting to see is some movement in the irrigation products space. The first state that on a statewide basis passed a law requiring WaterSense labeled irrigation controllers was Colorado. This law will take effect in January 1, 2026. And there are great things about going first. You get to try something new, you get the benefits of the savings. So I think certainly the goal here is a good one. As with any newer topic, there's still some work going on in the state at the state agency level and with some manufacturers to think through what is the scope of this requirement, how will it be implemented, what types of irrigation controllers does it apply to. So there's kind of some emerging discussion there about exactly what's the best way to do this. Linda from CalWEP, one of our partner organizations out of California, will touch on a similar effort in California. And they're also working and looking on some irrigation controller efficiency requirements. So I think the trend here is moving beyond the indoor and thinking about what types of product efficiency savings can we get from point of sale requirements in different states. My best bet is that this will continue, but I do think there are some important details to work out as to what makes the most sense, what will save water, what will be accepted and easy to implement, and then how people react and implement the requirements. So that's a trend to keep an eye on. All the links in this presentation will take you to the bills in question. And really here we're at the implementation stage. So moving beyond products, looking at the other side of the house, if you will, when it comes to irrigation, and that's what you plant, what types of plants, how much you plant of a given type, what other landscaping you might use. And the emerging and growing area there is non-functional turf. And I know there's folks who have different views on the best name for non-functional turf. Some people think of it as ornamental turf. but for ease of reference, and because I think it is the most common phrase used in the industry, we're going to talk about non-functional turf. Just wanted to highlight a free resource we have available. This was the result of working with utility staff in different states where there's a lot of activity at both the state and local level. And this report covers a whole range of things we can't get into today. We, in fact, had a whole hour-long presentation on multiple ways of defining what non-functional turf is, which is important and beyond what we can do today. So I highly encourage you to check this out for that, for information about data collection, mapping, savings estimates, and so on. So in case people aren't familiar with it, just wanted to give a couple picture examples. I think sometimes that's the easiest way to convey the big picture. And on the top two pictures, you have turf in areas that people would typically consider non-functional. And one looks like the back of a shopping center there. There's no pathways or walkways or any suggestion that this has a use. It's also on a pretty steep slope. So under most state and local definitions, that would be non-functional turf. And then the other one is a landscape strip out in front of, looks like a kind of a strip office center near a busy road. Also has a slope to it. So that's an area due to its size and location where people are very unlikely to use that for recreation or other things. And again, most places would consider that non-functional turf. And then thinking about what you do once you remove or if you don't plant in the first place non-functional turf, there's a whole bunch of activity going on related to low water use plant varieties, native plants, and other types of landscaping that will use less water. I do want to note here too that there's also a fair amount of effort going on to look at drought-tolerant turf grasses. That's another trend. It has not trickled down into any kind of state policy activity yet, but there's also a way of looking at things where people are carefully evaluating what types of turf use different amounts of water, how they fare in drought. So there's a kind of a myriad of approaches being pursued. And if you've ever heard the phrase that states are the laboratories for democracy, what that means is, states will experiment in different ways. And I think the exciting thing is we're at the early stages of many of these efforts. And if we're in those states, sometimes there's growing pains as to how that works out. But for folks in other states, or if we watch what's going on, hopefully we can learn from each other and start to settle into some things that work well in our states and our places. So just to cover a few of the state level laws, and again, there's a lot of local work here. So I would encourage you to check out our report, where obviously you probably know better what's going on in your own local area. But the Nevada bill passed in 2021. That was right about the time we were finishing up our scorecard, and it focuses on limits of irrigation of non-functional turf. It also generally excludes single-family residential use, which is a pretty common trend among non-functional turf policy. California also recently acted, and theirs prohibits irrigation of non-functional turf. They have kind of a phase-in approach to what types of users this applies to over time. And again, they're mostly focused on larger landscapes and not as much on single-family homes. And finally, Colorado, they're the most recent to act, and they prohibited non-functional turf again on the larger kind of non-single family home type properties, although I think they have some HOA stuff mixed in there. And they're interesting as well because they go beyond non-functional turf and also prohibit artificial turf and invasive plant species. So the observation I think we take away from all this activity is, this is a trend that's growing, it seems to us, and there's a wide range of approaches. And it's something we're watching pretty carefully. Our members care a lot about. I'm sure there's people on this call from these states who know much more about the details. But one of our goals is to help share across states. And also, if you need connections to someone who wants to go deep into these, I would pay attention to that. If you're more on the landscape professional side, on the receiving end of whether it's these non-functional turf limits or any of the irrigation product related items, a lot of these laws get passed and then have several years before they're implemented. So that's something that for your business or for your approach, you should be aware of and try to learn, if you're in one of those states, how it will impact your business, your operations, your methodologies. And then I think lastly, if you're a local government or a local water utility, and again, folks on this call, I'm sure are becoming aware of this. If you're not already aware, is a lot of the enforcement and application of these state policies depend on local level activity. So I would be on the lookout for that. So big picture, I think AWEs, we're excited to see this activity focusing more and more on outdoors. I think there's a lot of potential here. But again, there's variation state to state. We're in the early game for both. And so it's something I expect we'll have some good takeaways in a year or two as the stuff starts getting implemented as to how it's performing, what's working well, what's easy to implement and enforce, and so on. So look forward to watching this ongoing discussion, and we're happy to serve as a resource in any way on these items or to connect you to other members if you have questions. And so with that, I will turn it over to Linda to talk a bit more about California.
Thank you, Andrew. So, hi, everyone. My name is Linda Vo, and I'm the Senior Program Manager with the California Water Efficiency Partnership. I'm excited to be here with you all virtually today. For my portion of this webinar, I'm going to provide an overview about the California Energy Commission's irrigation controller proceeding and proposed efficiency standards. But first, let me talk about my organization briefly. I work for the California Water Efficiency Partnership, also known as CAWEP. We're a membership-based nonprofit organization headquartered in Sacramento, California, but we do work throughout the state. Our mission is to maximize urban water efficiency and conservation. We have over 225 members consisting of water agencies, municipality, industry businesses, and more, and we are a state chapter of the Alliance for Water Efficiency. If you would like to learn more about us, please feel free to visit our website at cawep.org. For those of you who are not familiar with the California Energy Commission, the agency is California Primary Energy Policy and Planning Agency. The California Energy Commission is responsible for various tasks, including advancing state energy policy, investing in energy innovation, overseeing energy infrastructure, and preparing for energy emergencies. Additionally, the CEC is also responsible for achieving energy efficiency and developing renewable energy. The CEC accomplished this in part through their building and appliance efficiency programs, which includes setting efficiency standards for various appliances. I will discuss this a little bit more in the next slide. So you may be wondering why and how can the California Energy Commission do work on water efficiency? Well, there are a couple of factors. First is the water energy nexus. There is embodied energy in water. So by using water more efficiently, there are energy savings. The second reason is that California's climate is changing. Droughts are becoming more frequent and intense in the state. So thinking holistically when it comes to addressing the challenges that droughts bring is something the state is prioritizing. And lastly, Title 20 in the California Code of Regulations for the California Energy Commission includes state and federal minimum efficiency levels for energy and water consumption for products like consumer electronics, household appliances, and plumbing equipment. Okay, so let's dive a bit deeper into what the California Energy Commission is doing in regard to irrigation controllers. On this slide here is a process flow chart for the CEC's irrigation controller proceeding. In November of 2023, the CEC published their staff report with an analysis of proposed efficiency standards for irrigation controllers. This also kicked off a 60-day pre-rulemaking comment period. In December of 2023, the CEC held a staff workshop where CEC staff presented about the proposed standards and seek comments. Earlier this year, the CEC extended the comment period by another 30 days. And then in June of this year, the CEC created a work group with interested parties to discuss, share information, and solicit input about the proposed standards. As a note, for those of you who are interested, the deadline to request to participate in the work group was back in May, but the CEC did note that they will continue to accept participants after the deadline. There just might be a slight delay as they review your request. Okay, so the proposed standards that the California Energy Commission is proposing will apply to the controllers listed on this slide, which includes clock timers, weather-based, soil moisture-based, and battery-operated controllers. Manual watering timers and irrigation system accessories, such as add-ons and plug-in devices, are excluded from the scope. Additionally, agricultural irrigation controllers are currently included in the scope of the proposed standards. So what efficiency standards are the CEC proposing for irrigation controllers? Here's a high-level summary for you all. Under Title 20, manufacturers must test their appliances and follow specific requirements. For irrigation controllers, the CEC is proposing to align the test procedures with US EPA WaterSense program's test procedures for water-based irrigation controllers and soil moisture-based irrigation controllers. Additionally, the CEC is proposing that irrigation controllers must include a weather-based or soil moisture-based option. Essentially, the controller must be a smart controller. And the controller must meet the requirement of US EPA WaterSense specifications for water-based or soil moisture-based controllers. The CEC is also proposing to require that each model of irrigation controller be certified to the CEC's Appliance Efficiency Database. And lastly, each controller will be required to be marked with the following: the manufacturer name, the brand name or trademark, the model number, and manufacturer date. Now, before I wrap up my presentation, I do want to note some potential impacts of the CEC's irrigation controllers proceeding. Firstly, if the current set of proposed standards get adopted, the manufacturing process for some irrigation controllers will likely get impacted. For examples, manufacturers will need to ensure that their controllers have a water-based or soil moisture-based option. Secondly, the marketplace for irrigation controllers in California will look a little different because of the CEC's proposed standards will apply to all new irrigation controllers to be sold or offered for sale in California. And lastly, it's been said that what California does, the rest of the country or parts of the country will follow. It's possible that other states will look into setting efficiency standards for irrigation controllers like California. And with that, I will hand it off to Brian Fady for his presentation.
Great. Thanks, Linda. Hi, everybody. Brian Fady, State Policy Manager with the Appliance Standards Awareness Project. So just a quick background on us. We go by ASAP. We work to advance cost-effective energy and water-saving efficiency standards. And we do this for different kinds of products, not just appliances. You know, you hear the word appliance, a lot of people think of your washers and dryers, your refrigerators, what have you. And we do work on standards for those products, but we also work on efficiency standards for other products, including the water using products that we're going to talk about today. We were started in 1999. We're a subject matter team within a larger organization, the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, ACEEE. And just some background as well on the idea of state efficiency standards for products. So states have actually been adopting product efficiency standards since the 1970s, and they usually adopt them via legislation that goes through the state legislature. ASAP, we produce a model bill annually that makes recommendations about efficiency standards for states. And over the decades with efficiency standards, they've really been adopted in waves by states where every number of years, a group of states will adopt the same standards at once. And we're in a wave right now. You see the map here. If the state is in green, then it has adopted efficiency standards based on the ASAP model bill since 2018. And this would be 13 states plus Washington, D.C. have adopted standards in the last 6 years or so. And I should note, the standards, they've all been adopted via bills in the legislature over these years. They had effective dates that, when the bill passed, they were off a few years into the future, and that has now come to pass. So these standards are now in effect in all of the states in green, except for Maryland. Maryland's going to begin January 1st, 2025, coming up here. So which products are we talking about here? Well, for the water using purposes, we've got 5 related to water and 1 specifically for outdoor water use. So I put it at the top there, highlighted. Spray sprinkler bodies is one of the products that has been adopted by most of these states to have an efficiency standard for. But we also have faucets, shower heads, toilets, and urinals have been recommended for standards and adopted by most of the states. So what are the standards? What do products need to meet? They usually need to meet the WaterSense efficiency level, the current WaterSense efficiency level. So for spray sprinkler bodies, they need to meet the WaterSense specification, the current specification for spray sprinkler bodies. Now, some states have adopted the California Energy Commission efficiency levels for some of the indoor water using products. So your shower heads, your faucets, and your urinals. A number of states have gone with the more stringent California Energy Commission levels, but some also just have the WaterSense as the efficiency level. And so to kind of pull it together here, we'll jump back to the map. So if the state is in green, then it most likely has adopted efficiency standard for spray sprinkler body, faucet, shower head, urinal, and toilets. Now I say most likely, almost all of these states have adopted for almost all of those products, but a couple of states, for different reasons, didn't adopt a standard for all of those products. I'd note for the spray sprinkler bodies, Nevada, so for folks in Nevada, there isn't a spray sprinkler body efficiency standard there, but the legislature could pass a bill that adopts that standard, or the state's governor's office of energy has authority to adopt a standard via a rulemaking. So there are pathways for Nevada to adopt the spray sprinkler standard. And I'll note as well with this policy, this is on the sale of new products. Whether the product is going into a new construction building or an existing building, this is on the sale of the new product. So it applies to whether it's going into a new construction or an existing. So it is different than building codes. This is on the sale of the new product. And I'll note, we are certainly watching the California Energy Commission irrigation controller docket as a potential new product for our model bill, as I'm sure other folks are tracking that docket as well. But these are the water using products that we currently recommend standards for. And with that, I will hand it back to Sarah.
Great, thank you. All right, now time for our Q&A portion of the webinar. Go ahead and take a moment to type in any questions that you have. If you have maybe like a more intense question that requires, I guess, the use of your speech, you can always type in the Q&A that you'd like to be unmuted, and we can go ahead on the back end and unmute you. And I guess while you're thinking on those questions, we're going to go ahead and launch another poll. Katie, if you're ready, we can launch that poll. There it goes. And so please go ahead and respond to the poll. What types of landscapes do you work with? And then, of course, do you need a note of your attendance if you're getting CEUs for joining us today? And like I said, go ahead and take this moment also to type out any questions you have for our speakers. And thank you, speakers, for your time today and sharing your experiences with various outdoor regulations. Leave the poll open for just a few more seconds. It looks like we're getting at least most of the responses. Looks like we've got lots of questions coming in. All right, well, while that poll stays open, I'll go ahead and mediate the Q&A. I actually can take the first two questions. They're with regard to Colorado banning artificial turf. And if someone on the call is, I guess, more familiar, they can call me out. But my understanding of Colorado's turf ban is that they're taking a more holistic approach. And though artificial turf doesn't use any water, it also is not alive and contributes to heat island effects. And then also, of course, doesn't necessarily support any local pollinators or any local wildlife. It doesn't contribute to any soil health. And I think that is the logic behind Colorado, including artificial turf in their non-functional turf ban. And we have two questions on that. And then, let's see, we have, I think the next question is a question for Linda. Does the proposed standard for CEC apply to above ground irrigation systems?
Oh, excuse me. No, the proposed standard will apply to irrigation controllers and specifically to the controllers that I listed, I think in slide number 5 in my presentation.
Thank you. And next question also for Linda. If the test procedures will mirror EPA WaterSense, why not require that labeling instead of creating an additional standard?
That's a good question. So my understanding is that if a irrigation controller model was tested using the proposed test procedure for WaterSense certification, it does not need to be tested again in order to be included in the CEC's appliance certification database.
All right. This next one's either for Linda or Brian, I believe. It's, are there any maybe anyone, are there any state efficiency standards or EPA WaterSense standards for smart flow monitoring or home leak detection devices like Flume or Flow by Moen? I can answer the WaterSense part. We do not have a standard currently for any smart flow monitoring system. And yeah, if anyone can jump on that.
I do not know of any state standards for that either.
Same. And I do think the Alliance for Water Efficiency, many of our members have had success using a variety of products, or their customers using a variety of products. There are currently 2 IAPMO standards for leak detection devices, but they cover a pretty wide range, everything from ones that strap on your meter and just measure to ones that even can handle some of your irrigation related demands. But those standards are industry standards, but I'm not aware of anyone adopting them for indoor or outdoor.
And then I can chime in really briefly too. I'm not aware of any state efficiency standards for such devices, but I am aware that some insurance companies in California are requiring smart flow monitoring, water monitoring devices in order to award insurance plans for certain homes. So that's something that is new in California.
Cool. All right. Next question. This is just a general question, I think, for all of you. Has there been pushback from landscape or irrigation industries on these regulation, or maybe how do you engage with those industries?
Well, I can just say, specifically for the spray sprinkler bodies that states have been adopting an efficiency standard for, there really hasn't been pushback on that product. In fact, I can recall when Oregon ran their bill that had that as a standard. I think it was the Oregon Landscape Contractors Association. They actually requested that that be a product that gained that efficiency standard and really did the legwork to make sure that that was adopted. So, spray sprinkler bodies have not been, there has not been opposition showing up in the legislative process for that one.
Excuse me. I can speak to the CEC irrigation controller proceeding. So I am currently a participant in the work group for that proceeding, and that work group consists of water utilities, professors, people from educational institutions, manufacturers of irrigation controllers, and there have been some discussions regarding what the CEC is proposing in California, and the work group is still ongoing, so there's more discussion to come.
Maybe moving out from there, I can add a little more flavor. In Colorado, we have a number of members who are irrigation equipment manufacturers, and the date for compliance for the Colorado law is still forthcoming. And that was not something that AWE or ASAP were involved in the irrigation controller piece. And I think there's questions now about its scope and how it applies to different products. And so some of that's being worked out. So I think the manufacturers, at least in my discussions with them, were, wanted to understand how they can comply and what that means for their various product lines. So I think there's some open questions there. More broadly on some of the outdoor landscape pieces, I do think folks on the call who are involved in the state level legislation or NFT, for example, there's been a lot of discussion around those. We have members who are, at the utility level, implementing those types of programs, landscape transformation programs with great success and significant water savings. We also have members who are involved in developing water efficient and drought tolerant grasses and seeds, who believe that they should play a role. So there's a lot of discussion about exactly what the scopes of these types of rules should be, where they make sense, what other alternatives or additional strategies, how they could complement each other, whether they should be replacements. So I think there's a lot of discussion about exactly what makes the most sense in a given place. And then I kind of hinted at it in my presentation, but I think there'll be some folks who understandably are running their business day to day and aren't fully tuned into this yet until the compliance dates come. And then I think there kind of might be some more things we need to sort through on how do you actually do the work. There's lots of examples already, but I do think as they fully come into play, there'll be more learnings potential from the on-the-ground implementation.
Awesome. Thank you for all those responses. Those are really helpful. We do have a hand raised, so I will go ahead and call on Cheryl. Katie can go ahead and unmute her. We can hear what her question is.
There we go. And Cheryl, I just enabled your microphone if you would like to turn it on and ask your question out loud.
Thank you. I pressed that inadvertently, so my apologies, but thank you for recognizing me.
No problem. Just want to make sure everyone's included.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know everyone learns and communicates in different ways, so we want to make sure we support all of those. All right, well, moving on, next question is, are there any upcoming standards regarding rotary sprinkler heads? I can say from the WaterSense perspective, we are not currently working on anything regarding rotary sprinkler heads. It's always on the list. We're always looking for data, but that's not currently something we're working on. I don't know if anyone else has anything to say on that.
Just real quick, similar ASAP, we have not been reviewing that as a potential product for standards.
Not familiar of any efforts either.
Same here. I'm not aware of anything.
All right, next question. Have any of the utilities in attendance gone to residential tiered water rates or higher irrigation rate for commercial or industrial use for non-functional turf? I guess this is a question for maybe everyone, or maybe does anyone on the panel know about water providers going to higher tiered rates to kind of combat non-functional turf?
I'm not aware of any direct ties to non-functional turf. Obviously, people use a variety of strategies, water budgets, budget-based rates, tiered rates. I think those are not universal, but pretty widespread, but I'm not aware of any tied directly to non-functional turf concepts. Doesn't mean there aren't any, but I'm not familiar.
Anyone else? Yeah, same. Nothing immediately comes to mind. But yeah, like Andrew said, I know that there are a plethora of tools to reduce water use outside, and that's certainly one of them. I think that's an interesting question. But we do have a lot of questions, and I don't think we're going to get to all of them. But moving on, we'll answer as many as we can for now. This is for Andrew. Can you share again what specific states you listed updated codes for?
So there are, if the question is about the landscaping, what you plant in the NFT, that's Colorado, Nevada, California. If it's on the products, I encourage you both. Brian has an overall summary on his website. I can post a link. And then AWE also has an Excel file that's available to everyone that has a little more detail on the water products in particular. So I can share that in the chat for AWE. And I don't know, Brian, if you want to share the best place on your website, we can put those in the chat.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing those resources. And I'd also like to mention that this webinar is recorded, and we will post a recording later. So if you need to refer back to any tools, you definitely can do so. And our next question is more about communication between states. Does anyone know or monitor or keep record of discussions that happen between states with regards to regulation? I can say, I guess to start, from EPA standard, we like to know what states are up to, but obviously we cannot tell states what or what not to do. If we are invited to sit on boards, we definitely do so, and just convey what WaterSense does and why we do the things that we do. And yeah, that's our participation in that process. I'll kick it off to anyone else.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, at below the North American level, sometimes there's river basin organizations that will talk, you know, state to state when they share a watershed. But at the national level, I think honestly, AWE, I think of us as kind of like the nerds of water efficiency. So we get in the weeds of the technical and the policy. We have several committees where members get together and discuss. Those are pretty open agendas, so we often hear from people with what's going on. So I encourage you to check those out. And then also, many of our webinars are available for free on our website, YouTube. So the discussion happens there as well.
Anyone else want to add to that? All right, if not, moving on. All right, next question. In regard to the mandatory smart controllers discussed by CalWEP, has there been any pushback about the Wi-Fi requirements to operate the devices, or have there been considerations for equity where not all homes maybe have Wi-Fi?
That's a good question. I believe in one of the work group meetings, concerns about equity and the impacts of this proposed standard was discussed. I can't recall the specifics of the discussion, but I'm happy to follow up.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. And yeah, I know CLCA definitely keeps records of all of their their public conversations about topics like that. So, all right, let's see. Next question is, are all states with water shortages implementing water conservation programs? I would say yes. Everyone else, I guess, can speak to that also. I think that they are housed in maybe different parts of the government, but all the states that I can think of definitely have different conservation programs. They look different because our states, just environments and habitats look different, and the communities who live there look different. But yeah, I would say pretty confidently yes. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that.
I would just encourage people to check out the Alliance for Water Efficiency scorecard. We have a variety of questions about how states handle efficiency. Some of the newest trends, like I said, aren't in that scorecard, but there's a lot of very good information on a wide range of efficiency topics, including water conservation planning and other requirements and initiatives by states. So if you check that out and you have a state in mind, there's information in there.
Awesome. All right. The next question's a little long, but I think it's a good one. So I'm wondering if there is any possible regulation or policy being worked on for smart irrigation controllers to be accessed by water utilities through an opt-in agreement with the user, so that water utilities can access irrigation systems during emergency drought. They're wondering this because smart thermostats can be accessed by power companies during peak energy events. And yeah, this question is just asking if there will be maybe similar policies down the line regarding water.
That's also a good question. And unfortunately, I'm not aware of any potential regulation or policy in the work in regards to this.
I'm aware of some local pilots for this type of initiative. It is, I know, at least two pretty strong views among manufacturers. Some, if you think about like an iPhone, like iPhones don't share data with anyone, at least they say, right? Whereas other phone manufacturers have a different view. So I think there's different views among manufacturers as to whether and to what extent they'd be interested in that type of initiative. And then utilities also have pretty wide-ranging views on whether that's something they're interested in. So I think we're far away from mandatory policy. I say that and it'll probably happen tomorrow, but I know there's lots of opinions and there are some pilots to look at that type of activity.
Great. This next question is also for you, Andrew. When you mentioned some municipalities banning national turf bans or turf bans, non-functional turf bans, there we go. Does that imply that watering non-functional turf is not allowed, or is it the turf that's not allowed?
They're structured different ways in different places. Some are limits on new non-functional turf. So if you're renovating a building or redoing something or building a new building or developing something new. Some apply to limit or require removal of existing turf, and some are really just about irrigation. Some are only about irrigation with certain water sources, so it gets quite complicated to make a generalization. So if you're in a jurisdiction where there's activity, you need to look at the details because they differ and are important. Unsatisfying answer, but that is the answer. It depends.
Cool. Next question is there any plan that any of you know of on making or having a standard for measurable turf or native grass water efficiency standards? So any standard to maybe the specific type of turf that is planted.
Was the question native species or generally about grasses? I'm sorry, sir.
Kind of both. Any plan on making a standard for, I think, turf or native grass? So any sort of like water efficiency standard regarding the actual maybe turf species.
Yes. The ones I'm familiar with, one of our members is the Turfgrass Water Conservation Alliance, which does trialing and labeling for drought-tolerant turf grasses. They mostly do cool season, although they have some and are working to do more warm season grasses. And then there are various university-based approaches, often in the South and the Southeast, where there's university trialing of warm season turf grasses and their drought tolerance and water use. Another one of our members, Tiff Tuff, is one of the major brands there, but there's others. Tahoma, I think it's out of the University of Oklahoma. And there's a lot of USDA funding for that. So if you Google around, you should be able to find some of that. But that's kind of more university-based, I'd say, at this point. And then the Turfgrass Water Conservation Alliance actually is a separate organization. It does high-quality reviews using universities, but ultimately it gets you a label that a certain grass is drought tolerant according to their standards. So work on that, but I'm not aware of it being kind of top-down policy or regulation anywhere that keys into those efforts.
Next question is, how do you track water savings if you do based on these programs? I can kick that off with WaterSense. We track our programs based on water saving studies, and then we build models based on reported sales of the products that we've labeled. And yeah, my colleague could explain more. It's a very intense and complicated model, but that is how WaterSense calculates our savings. So it's both based on recorded data and then a prediction model. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to answer that. We do it all.
I'll jump in and add, we have done one study of smaller, mostly single family landscape transformations, which generally includes things like removing non-functional turf, as well as some irrigation optimization. That's available on our website. We are currently, and I wish my colleague Liesl Hans, the director of programs here, could speak in more depth, but we are also doing a project on large landscape transformations. So those projects look at ongoing utility level activity and quantify using billing data and other data how those programs performed, kind of the more voluntary, locally initiated programs.
Yeah, I'll throw in the chat here. ASAP, we do create forward-looking projections of savings that states could see if they adopt the efficiency standards for these products. We create these each year, but they're just forward-looking. We don't do after the fact testing, but folks might be interested in this. We have them for all 50 states.
Yeah, and I will just say on a much different scale, WaterSense also has various case studies that are obviously site specific, but I think that those demonstrate some awesome water savings from various outdoor projects that can be found on our website too. And I think we're getting close to 4. There's still tons of questions, and we will have these questions and we can review them and address them to you all specifically later. I hope that is okay, but I want to be conscious of everyone's time. And I, of course, want to thank all of our speakers for joining us. I think we had like a really awesome and interesting discussion. And I think I speak for everyone to say that, our inboxes are open if we want to, continue these discussions. I think it's important because these are clearly trends happening across the country. And us as water professionals are going to have to learn how to, utilize these tools, but also navigate them and make sure that, everyone is kind of up to speed. And I always say these random slides at the end, but more or less, I'll summarize them quickly. It's WaterSense is a partnership program. Be our partner. We'd love to have you. It's free, and you can find that on our website. And then we also have a certifying professional program, which I guess that, oops. I can get to the slide. Here we go. professional certifying program. So if you are an irrigation professional, please think about becoming certified through one of the various programs that we support. And like I said, we'd love to have you. And again, thank you to all of our speakers. Yeah, like I said, I think this is a really great discussion. And yeah, thank you for joining us today. That's all I have.